From the swamp to the stars, it's time for little Timmy Seanor and the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Always good to have you here, my friend. I know you've been hopping in and out of tonight's show, but man, what a good night. What a very good night.
So much fun, and getting to ask Keith a couple questions there at the end is awesome. I don't get a lot of that option. He's such a swell guy.
You know what? He is a trip, man. Like, you get him in person, he is a trip, and literally one of the nicest human beings you could ever meet.
Yeah.
Really, really cool dude. Really cool dude. Dude, we got a lot of stuff going on right now in the UFO world. The Limina conference is going on right now, put on by the new kids on the block, the Enigma Labs, and you know, listening to a bunch of people from around the world that most of us in North America haven't learned about when it comes to UFOs. And you know, I could see where that would be very interesting indeed, to get some new opinions and everything like that. But there's also a lot happening in the storyland of everything, Tim, and we're going to kick off with the SCU, the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, and their response to the ODNI UAP report.
That's right. And so the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies went ahead and commended the Pentagon and their UAP efforts, but they're asking for a little bit more data. And so SCU, as they're known, is asking for highlights, but the significance of the release for them in the recent report on UAP was that basically that information is not being hampered anymore, and that there is an opportunity for scientific investigation. And so as of February 1st, SCU came out with their public statement here on their opinion of ODNI's UAP report, and whose 230 members include university professors, members of high-tech and defense industries, scientists, intelligence specialists, and current and former members of space research organizations. And so they came forward to thank the U.S. Congress for the passage of legislation in the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act. The act puts the U.S. at the forefront among nations in the collection of data on UAP in an open and transparent manner. And so the SCU also wishes to thank the office for the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, and of course all of the supporting intelligence community for their work in the recently published report itself. And so I can see by this recent report that SCU is very excited, and they are very optimistic looking forward, as long as this data is being made transparent and available to them. And so they go through to highlight some of the notes and key areas stipulated in the announcement by Congress here in the NDAA. And in particular, they feel that the number of reported incidents over restricted airspace and an analysis of such incidents is necessary. And moving forward into another point, they feel that the assessment of any UAP activity that can be attributed to one or more adversarial foreign governments need to be ruled out. And so again, more details need to be presented. So they hope that identification of any incidents or patterns will be able to be acknowledged. They hope for an update on any efforts underway on the ability to capture or exploit discovered UAP. Also, the number of reported incidents and descriptions thereof associated with the military nuclear assets, including strategic nuclear weapons and nuclear-powered ships and submarines, should also be included in the incidents and not ruled out simply because they're potentially secret. And so the number of reported incidents and descriptions thereof associated with the nuclear material, with the weapons storage and or civilian nuclear facilities also need to be included in future reports. And so the requirements are hopefully going to extend, and SU in particular looks forward to the information that the ODNI and Arrow will be sharing with the public in the future. And it's grateful that the US government agrees that the UAP are a critical area of scientific study.
I like what I'm hearing, but I do have some concerns because, I always like to play devil's advocate with you. My concern is the SCU really, outside of claiming science, has not really given a stance of what their purpose is for what is going on with UFOs. Okay. We know that they want scientific engagement with this phenomena. We know that they have members on there that are part of government agencies. We know that they have potentially some of the members have, looked into crash retrievals, maybe metamaterials and things like that. But I'm never sure really what their focus is or what they are doing. You have a bunch of brainiacs, and I mean that with all due respect, incredibly intelligent people who are a part of this board, Tim, from universities all around the world. And I'm very lucky that I've got to, meet a few of them and befriend a number of them as well. But the one concern that I have and the reservation that I have is, what is their focus? What is their mantra? Are they there for selfish reasons in order to try and move this phenomena forward by any means necessary? Or are these brilliant men and women doing this for the sake of bettering humanity? And I can't answer that question. So when I see a report that I don't personally agree with, because let's face it, we're in the thick of things on a daily basis, then I see a group like the SCU come out and commend the ODNI report that really gave us zero information outside of a couple of little, tidbits. It was really crickets. So to support that type of report from the United States government, I think is a little disappointing at the hands of the SCU and maybe even a little bit irresponsible. Am I being too critical?
No, I think you're being absolutely realistic on a very deep level. On a much more surface level, that I kind of hope to remain for a moment. On the very surface level, this is awesome movement in a very positive forward momentum on this topic. Working with the government hand in hand, making sure that this topic isn't getting dropped to the wayside. So far, they've come out with
Yes.
2 supporting reports of true UAP, forcing the government's hand, forcing the DoD's hand to reconcile with the Navy on these 2 confirmed UAP videos from the military. So I feel they absolutely hold value. Now, on the deeper level that you're talking about, true motivations and things like that, now that's a deep level that the UFO community needs to keep them in check and be aware of. But again, that UAP report that we got this year, the 22 report, on a deep level was disappointing to the UFO community, but on the surface level, it was massive because it brought this to a whole nother level where there's no hiding at this point with this topic. And so the public is aware. It made headlines. The SCU, whenever they come out with confirmation of UAP, it should be making headlines. It doesn't always, but should be making headlines. And it's just more confirmation. It is, in fact, Dave, more of what you are hoping for.
Well, I think it is exactly what not just I'm looking for, but what many in the public are looking for. Like, Tim, I guess my concern with this is how many more baby steps do we need to take? Why can't we take a leap every now and again? Why can't we take a full stride? I'm not saying run. Okay. I'm not saying sprint. I'm not saying run because this is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. But I'm just maybe I'm fed up. But when you have that much brain power inside the SCU, notably with many of them with government ties, it doesn't surprise me with what they are saying, but I don't see where we can be as a UFO society happy that they are supporting the ODNI report. We need more from these people. We need people like this with the brain capacity and the ability to get their voices heard by members of Congress, by the Senate in the US. We need them to be able to push more. Imagine if the SCU, and I'm going to throw this out here for a second, but imagine if the SCU came out and said to NASA, what's in your closet? What happens then, Tim? Why do we always have to take the cautious approach? Why can't we just climb over the mountain instead of taking the long way? And the SCU has the ability to do that, except they never do. They never do. And this is why I question, what is their focus? Because I don't understand it. I really don't.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I'm loving what I'm hearing right now from you, because that is potential growth in a great potential way. Now, let's not forget that this is a young group, and their spokesman, their director, publicly still backtracks before he even presents. You know what I mean? So this is not a confident young company. They're venturing out into boiling hot water, and they know that. They're just tiptoeing forward. They're trying to present in a real way. They don't want to come in too hard. They don't want to burn the community like Enigma's coming in charging forward. Probably won't succeed in this community. But this is a group of 230 scientists that are serious about the topic, and they're only edging forward with real data. The only reason that they're supporting the NDAA the way it is because it's talking about data. And remember, in the very last sentence of this, they say that they look forward to the information that the ODNI and Arrow will be sharing with the public in the future. So this is a group that is on our side, that wants to push for transparency. And they have been so far very transparent, not only in their consortiums, but also with their presentations online. And so I must say that anything that this group does in the future moving forward is going to get quite a bit of support, as long as they are pushing with that transparency and that push for public information.
No, I get that. And I think that's great. Okay. But where does it stand? How does that help you and I in the short term and long term? It doesn't. Well, I mean, it could. Pardon me. That's just being arrogant to say that. I apologize. You know, but I would love to see the SCU actually grow some cojones and ask those tough questions. Now, I don't know whether it's because many in their membership do have government ties. Okay. Example, we know Gary Nolan does. Okay. We know Jacques Vallée does. We know Avi Loeb does. Just to name three. We could go on and on and on.
Let me just interject. I think there needs to be an era diplomacy, though, right? Going like this group could do that, but at the same rate, to have those discussions to out big stuff from NASA and to out big stuff from the DoD, there has to be that element of diplomacy where there is some sort of information exchange that might not be able to be public, but still needs to be exchanged. Is that where you feel the danger is? Are you wondering about their motivations?
I don't think it's danger. What I do think it is they're not. The SCU has always been quite coy about what they are about. In fact, a few years ago, very few people within the UFO community had even heard of the SCU, let alone bringing them up in conversation. And when you look at the power of people and the knowledge and the degrees and the doctorates that are in this group, you look back and you're like, holy cow, mainstream science really is looking into this phenomena. You know, it's not all about what Neil deGrasse Tyson says or Bill Nye, the fake science guy. Okay? It's not about what they're saying. These are real scientists who probably don't want the buzz and attention that goes along with this. But as they have increased their own awareness publicly, we have a right to question, where do you stand? Is this about you or is this about humanity? And I think that's a fair question that needs to be asked. And on that note, Tim, we are going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. We have little Timmy Seanor and the UFO report continuing. When we return, we're going to talk some balloons. We're going to talk some Galileo and see what else we can get into right after this on the UFO report on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear.
Interesting stuff.
The SCU would be the literal perfect watchdog for the UFO community.
Interesting.
They don't want it, though. Heidi Ocean Swiger. That's right, Nicole. Their collective scientific egos should be taking charge.
Yeah.
You don't look happy tonight, little Timmy Seanor.
Oh, I don't? Oh, I've been busy today.
You're not your chipper self.
Oh, no, I'm in a great mood, bud. Yeah. Just been busy. It's been busy, and my children have been super high maintenance, and so it's just been one of those days, you know, where you like throw up 8 balls and try to keep them all in the air at once. But yeah, no, I'm great. Life is awesome. I did not know, though, about that consortium with Enigma, so you're going to have to send me more details on that. That is very interesting.
What consortium?
The group that met. You were saying that there was a meeting in the top of the hour, and it was called LIUNA.
Oh, yeah, there's a conference going on here. I'll show you.
Yeah. What's it called again?
I believe the Limina Symposium. Or the Limina Symposium. Here we go. I'll bring it up here.
Cool. Because, I mean, I'm very curious who showed up to represent for Enigma.
Well, let's check it out. There's symposium. There's the participants. This lady has the greatest name ever. Dr. Babette Babich. I love it. Babette Babich.
Robert Powell.
They have some brilliant people.
Yeah.
I would like to know.
Mick
I would
West,
really like to know,
UFO
though,
guy.
how Mick West gets in there.
Yeah.
Distinguished guests. They have their journalists here. Let's see here. This is the talks that are going on. They really do have some very highly educated people here.
So NASA, yeah. Wow.
And apparently, they've got one sponsor, Enigma Labs.
Hmm.
The exhibitors that they have right there.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So many questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's linked with Skunkworks, right? And was so I guess they put up a lot of posters for the symposium at Skunkworks to try and get people from there to go.
Really?
It's according to this Skunkworks blog. As of December 18th, they were trying to get their people to go and sign up. So that's interesting as well. Inaugural symposium, so that means it's their first.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I need to get on their list here. Don't want to be on that list. Okay.
Hold on. We got about 8 seconds here, buddy.
Okay.
We're round to third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on. Little Timmy Seanor is here with the UFO report, and the Galileo project is analyzing satellite data in search of unusual objects. Let's hit this one out of the park here, Tim.
That's right. And so Avi Loeb has recently taken to Medium, an online blog, if you will, and he regularly writes there and likes to talk about his work there. And so the Galileo project is now analyzing public satellite data from Planet Labs, which is in search for unusual objects. A particularly interesting search area is Antarctica, as it offers a white background with negligible human activity. And so preliminary examination of satellite data did not reveal any unusual objects there. However, the search continues. And so Planet Labs in particular is a company that provides satellite survey imagery, large areas of the ground on Earth through discrete snapshots. And so, however, the motion of objects can be inferred from the images taken in different colors at slightly different times. The temporal offset between snapshots in different spectral bands offer a substitute for full motion video. And any relative change reflects the velocity of the object relative to the velocity of the Planet Labs satellite. And so it's looking like Avi and his team are able to look at objects in different elevations that would experience different air density at frictional and create frictional heat release. And so a lot of the information and data that they're collecting hopefully will give them some information and reveal any unusual objects. So interesting that originally we had heard from Avi and his team that they weren't going to use any artificial or outside data, but perhaps from a lack of evidence that they're able to collect from their own services, they've had to reach out and look to this company Planet Labs for their satellite surveys and still images, not even video. And so, Dave, I would personally be a little hesitant to get this deep using other people's information for my own research. But here we see Avi and his team at Galileo Project moving forward into satellite data imagery analysis, which is a tough field in its own. How do you feel about this?
Well, I think we all knew Avi Loeb was going there. He is on the search, from what I'm hearing, for the next Oumuamua, because he still believes that Oumuamua was in 2017 a spacecraft or some piece of space junk from a different life form or something along those lines. Or
Interplanetary. Yeah.
interplanetary, exactly. So I think that's where he's going for that, you know. But the idea behind it is, how does he or his group get access to these satellites? I mean, do you just go over? It's not like going over to your neighbor's house and saying, "Hey, can I borrow your snowblower or your lawnmower?" It's not like that. So I'm curious to know how they are able to get that information to analyze it, or how they are able to track things in the stars. Because look, we know they have a budget around 18 million or something along those lines. It may have gone up since then. We also know that they are starting to get in bed with other direct groups, whether it's the US government, whether it's Enigma Labs. We know this is happening. So is this a step because Enigma Labs is starting to kind of invade the publicity in the UFO world, that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, after doing nothing for months, that Galileo is all of a sudden trying to make some news here? Your thoughts, Tim?
I definitely think that they are trying to become competitors in that race, because we know that there is absolutely competition right now to hold the cards that the government want to see. And hopefully, be able to write your own paycheck to share and sell that data. So absolutely, this team is also in the running for these potential contracts. Now, I've looked into the sourcing that they're using for their satellite imagery through Galileo, and it's basically a commercial company that has satellite data and satellites of their own. And you can go to planet.com and look at it yourself, and they basically have contact sales. So if you are in the education field or in the government field, you can absolutely get access to purchasing a contract where you'll get regular information on anywhere on the planet that you're focusing in on, as long as it's obviously somewhere that you have access to. But they say right on their website that it's daily Earth data to see change and make better decisions. Planet provides daily satellite data that helps businesses, governments, researchers, and journalists understand the physical world and take action. And quite literally, that is exactly what this company does: provide satellite data to anyone that can pay for it, basically, and has the credentials to get it. So knowing that, that tells me that they're expanding, but it also tells me that they are limiting themselves, again, to other people's information, which can
It
be
doesn't it seem
frustrating.
like doesn't it seem like nobody really wants to take the lead and do things for yourself? Look, I realize that costs money. Okay, everything costs money today, and to do a topic like this, we're not talking about going on a GoFundMe account and asking for $1,000. Okay, we're talking millions upon millions of dollars. You need to find somebody with very deep pockets who has the want and the desire to see and know what potentially could be out there among the stars. That's what you need. And I can understand where that lack of those people out there really limits a lot of groups. I mean, let's face it, Galileo's been around for almost 3 years now, and we're still waiting for accomplishments from this power group of scientists and the brilliancy of many people on this group. But we talked months ago that we had concerns, Tim, and I think you and I agreed on this, when they started allowing, people who have government roles within their community. I didn't like that. You didn't like that. Many other people in ufology didn't like it, especially when Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon joined Galileo. There was no need for them to join unless you needed the government contracts and contact. So once again, much like SCU, what is really the goal? Because all we ever hear from these guys, whether it's SCU, whether it's UAPX, whether it's Galileo, and now Enigma, and every other group, is it's all about going into the tool compartment and into your shop and playing with nuts and bolts. And,
Right.
you talk to anybody in this field, okay, and they will tell you the more you research, the less nuts and bolts this subject is. You've learned that hard lesson over the last 6 months or so. And it's tough. It's tough to create an understanding regarding that. It's tough to push yourself to a limit that this phenomena may be more than just a bunch of nuts and bolts that you need a crescent wrench to unscrew or tighten up. And that's where they're not going, at least not that we know. They don't want that reality yet. Remember, these are the people, Tim, who are segregating UFOs from alien contact. And like I've always said, if you've never had an experience, it's never aliens. Once you've had an experience, it's always aliens. And if they know that those craft are not from Earth, who's flying them? Or who's controlling them? If they're not from Earth, who's controlling them? Because they're just not out there doing tours of the galaxies. And this time it's our solar system, the Milky Way. It's not how that works. It's like when we send a probe into space, we're hoping to pick something up, but it's being controlled by NASA. So who's controlling these ones if it's not from Earth? That means aliens, correct?
Yeah, and it's frustrating that the conversation hasn't elevated there yet, because it seems like it just stops at UAP. It's a phenomenon, and that's it. We haven't gotten to that question yet, Dave, and it's such an important question. It is the question. And further than that, what do we do once we know that? Like, how do we want to represent as human beings? And is it too late to perhaps undo mistakes that have already represented ourselves in an ill fashion? I can assume, potentially, but that gets into a deeper question. But you're absolutely right. It hasn't been covered that I know of. Now, we know that there's contingency plans for if we do get invaded or if they come here. But in no way does that have any elevated enlightenment to it by what it seems on the surface. We haven't asked, who are they and why are they here?
Why are we afraid of that question?
It's maybe a scary and maybe a gloomy, scary answer, or maybe it's not. But potentially it's not the answer we want. Let's say that.
Well, look, there's been enough study and evidence to know that they know what is coming from Earth and what is not. They know, look how quickly they were able to tell these were Chinese weather balloons. Or spy balloons, pardon me. Okay? We heard from random guy a great story where his buddy in the Navy watched a UFO come out of the water, hover beside the aircraft carrier, and then shoot up into space at 68,000 miles an hour. We know that is going on. We know that that's not human. So who's flying it? And why are we afraid to ask that question? This is where I don't like the term UAP, because UAP is so governmental. All right. It is so governmental on trying to control a narrative of the phenomena. The phenomena is the narrative. It doesn't have its own narrative. It is the narrative. And the more you go down the rabbit hole to learn this phenomena, you will know that it is all intertwined. It is all interconnected. And you have to accept that. It's like we always complain about the Bigfoot world, Tim, about how it's either flesh and blood or supernatural. And if it is flesh and blood, why don't we have a body? Why can't we find a body? And the excuse is, well, have you ever seen a black bear's body? Yeah, I've seen 2 of them. Seen 2. And you know what happens when you can't find a body, Tim? There's usually fur remnants around. I've seen moose torn apart in the forest and deer torn apart. And guess what? The fur is still there. Where's the body? We don't know. The point that I'm making with that is we have to start getting a little bit more direct. There's no problem with getting direct and asking direct questions and combining whether or not we're alone, instead of worrying about UAPs and what the government thinks about them. It's frustrating.
It's tough, though. It's tough because who do you ask that question to, and how can they answer even if they know?
That's it. There you nailed it. How do they answer that question even if they know? You nailed it right there. That's your home run shot on this topic. How do they answer that question? They're not allowed. They know. Elizondo knows. You don't think Elizondo gives little tidbits to people he talks to privately? He does. He has to me. He has to others. We all know that he's had close encounters. We all know it. How many of those Elizondos that we only know about Elizondo? What about the other Elizondos that work at the Pentagon, for the DOE, for the Department of National Defense, for the CIA, the NSA, the NRO, Space Force, Space Command, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Army, Coast Guard?
We'd never know.
We don't know how many. We don't know how many. How about when those, that's like saying, Tim, and putting in denial that the U.S. military does not have a team ready within minutes if a UFO landed.
Right.
Let's say pick a town, Bismarck, North Dakota. Let's just pick it for a random reason. UFO lands there. Do you not think the military bases around there are not going to be getting scrambled, and an elite team is not going to be scrambled to that area to try and make contact with a craft that's on the ground?
Yeah. I mean, for example, look at how we know our country handled this balloon that we have in the news. Look at how that was handled. And Dave, you and I know behind the scenes how it was really handled, and the interest and what was really going on and things like that. And that is very interesting stuff. If that is just on something that is mundane that we know, because, and I was going to bring this up later when we actually talk about it, but that report initially came out from the first witness as a UFO report in the news. The first photograph of this thing, but the original eyewitness of the Chinese balloon, was a UFO report. It was, and so it's so funny because it's the exact opposite of what happened in Roswell. We got this UFO, or I guess it's the same, really. We got this UFO report of a white orb, And then sure enough, within hours, it was confirmed that it was a balloon. And then all the other details have come out. But initially, this was a UFO report, which I find so perfect.
Oh, I understand that. I understand. We got 3 minutes to go here, and we're going to get into a lot of these topics with Random Guy
Indeed.
up next. That'll be just on our YouTube channel. But I mean, the idea behind it, though, is I guess what you're saying, what I'm saying, Tim, is it really goes to show that the powers that be really have either a fear or very little understanding about how many people really know what's going on, and if we're ready for a little bit more news or not.
Do you think that they've tested the waters of how humanity will handle this topic in any other way in history?
Yes. Elizondo stated on this show last year that COVID was a great test on that they were paying attention. Because no offense to anybody out there, okay, this has nothing to do pro or con COVID. The one thing that it did do was it was a great litmus test to show how people are going to treat each other. And we treated each other like garbage, ratting people out, stealing, going to the grocery store, buying 300 rolls of toilet paper, buying out meat sections, buying 10 gallons of milk for you and your husband. In the meantime, you only drink half a gallon every 2 weeks.
Madness. Garbage bags of gasoline.
Garbage bags of gasoline. Yeah. I mean, that was a good litmus test on how we're going to treat each other. And the sad part about it is 3 years later, many companies and many supermarkets, and you look at the car industry, they're still not out of it. Many industries are still not out of it because of a number of reasons. And it ain't UFOs.
No, it ain't. But it is so interesting. And I think you brought up a great point, because even the people that are in the know how would you even present something like that on such a big scale without being completely just either not believed or, in trouble because of talking about something that goes against your NDA or it's such big information. How would you even present that?
Well, we're going to have to leave it on a question mark for tonight.
Indeed.
Little Timmy Seanor, thank you so much for coming on in, my friend.
Thank you, buddy.
It's always good to see your very limited chin hair on camera.
I keep it tight.
Yeah, that is tight. And a big thank you to our good friend, our Keith Andrews, for coming on in for breaking a record of a show tonight. 324 people on our YouTube, plus all of our beautiful radio audience and podcasters out there. It's going to be another massive show. He just keeps getting more and more popular. More and more popular. People love and need the woo, and that's why we bring him on in. And thank you to Swamp Dweller for another spooky story as well. If you're on YouTube, stick around. We are going to do after hours, but we got to say goodnight to the radio side of everybody here. So goodnight to all of you, as we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club. And to the people all hanging out on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, thank you so much for hanging on out with us. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.